Hey everybody, welcome to Audiomo Podcast number 5. I botched the first intro here. Hope you're all having a wonderful day, and I have my co-host Dave, who just celebrated his birthday. Happy belated, mister.
Hey, thanks.
Yes, and you got some love in the comments down below, and a little bit of shit because you were playing a Super Strat. However, we were talking about Super Strats a little bit, and when we filmed the last podcast, we didn't know what exactly the leaked Harley Benton was going to be. And it ended up being those HHS Super Strats without a pick guard. And you kind of hit on that. You didn't like that. I'm just going to tell you, I got the Daphne blue one with the roasted neck. So that should be here actually tomorrow or today when everybody is watching this.
Yeah, I was kind of like foot in my mouth a little bit. I'm like, these aren't that bad. I mean, I still don't like that they don't have the pick guard, but realistically, like, they are mod platforms, right? Like I feel like that's kind of the whole point of the Harley Benton, especially the Fusion series, right? Like, you're going to rip the pickups out. And if I want to put a pick guard on it, I probably could. And it probably wouldn't be that hard and it'd be fine. But they nailed no matching color headstock. They got the roasted maple with the stainless steel. It's just such a good value prop that, like, if all I have to do is a couple of little cosmetic things, like, to make it, kind of fit my vibe, it's better. It's certainly better than the other ones, right? Like, there was nothing I could do with the other ones that I think I would ever make it feel like something I wanted to use. But with those, I feel like you throw a pick guard on it for me and I'm good. They're cool.
Yeah, I was taken aback by how much I actually liked it. And I think it was a few podcasts ago, we were talking about the Charvels, the DK24s, and I said I just couldn't pull the trigger for $1,000. I felt like that was just a lot for, I know it's a Fender Mexican-made guitar at this point. They used to make them in Japan. But, seeing this come in at half the price with, more features on it, and I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of the stock pickups that I hear that come out of the Mexican factory from Fender, I was going to do the same thing anyways. I'd rip those out and put in my own set. So for me, I'm getting better frets, I'm getting lock-in tuners, I get the 2-point tremolo system, really similar aesthetic for half the price at the starting point. So I'm really happy with it and I'm excited to get it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only thing I was disappointed with is I wanted the hardtail option in all the finishes rather than in some of the finishes. That's just me personally because I'm not really, I'm more of a hardtail fan than I am of a tremolo fan. So, like, if for me, I would totally hit the Daphne blue with the hardtail. I think they're doing just the gloss blue finish with the hardtail, which is slightly disappointing, but. We're getting there. They're adding the features that I think everybody's looking for. I think I saw one of your videos where you're talking about, I think it's Agufish who did the specs for this one. And obviously he's clearly just doing how close can I get to those DK24s and keep it a Harley, right? And I mean, he did, right? They're definitely there. I will say I don't really like the pink, but it's the same problem they had with the Explorer where it's just too light, It's like, it feels like... somebody spilled some pink in their white by accident and they're trying to, like, get rid of it before they can throw them all out or whatever. But I like the Daphne blues a lot, especially with the roasted maple. I just wish it came in a hardtail.
Yeah, I know what you mean about the pink, though. It looks like almost an eggshell white and not a regular pink. Like, you see the pink behind me, like, that's shell pink. That's right. What shell pink's supposed to look like. Yeah. Right. Like, these ones look just like a very, very light hue of pink. But one thing I noticed, you mentioned the hardtail. That has pickup rings on it, and it makes the guitar look
weird.
No, it doesn't make it look weird. For whatever reason, it makes it look cheap. Like, it looks like an entry-level guitar compared to the ones that don't have the pickup rings in it. And I wouldn't have thought that until I looked at them side by side. I was like, why does that one look like so much cheaper? But it's literally just pickup rings. So I just thought it was strange.
It is a weird, and I wonder why. I mean, it just because of the hardtail, like why they had to make that choice. I'm not sure.
I don't know. It's weird. However, We do know now. Well, this is going to be news for Thursday. Thanks to the beautiful people in the comments section, I'm looking at you, Raph. Thank you so much. They found out, because Thomann has them on their website, the new models that are going to be released. So we're going to tell tales out of school today, and we're going to talk about them because the first one is a Les Paul, and It's one of their traditional ones. It's not one that has the 4-knob. It's a 3-knob. It's kind of a custom style, like the SE Customs. It comes in a nice, like a Daphne blue with the binding on it. It's very nice looking. Stainless steel frets and the Tesla pickups. And then black. And the other guitars are SGs. And it's their first time that are going to have stainless steel frets on them. Both of them before shipping to the United States. The SG is $309 plus I think $77 shipping, and the Les Paul I think is $30 more than that at $339. What do you think about both of those guitars?
Well, again, right, first reaction looking at the page, I had no idea this was pink until I read that it was shell pink. It is so light. I thought it was just a white SG. Like, I don't know. They got to rework this pink color, but I don't know, man. I mean, I think the feature set's great, and if you're into this, you're into this. One, I will say that I have one of their Les Pauls, a gold top, and there's something just slightly off about the shape of it to me. I don't know what it is. It's a little, maybe it's a slightly lopsided.
I know what it is.
What is it?
Because it drives me nuts too. Okay, so let me grab my Les Paul and I'll show you exactly what it is real quick. All right, so the headstock doesn't bother me, but where this part of the body meets, you see how it's straight here on the Les Paul? Yeah. On the Harley Benton, it curves down and inwards.
Curves down to go into the same contour as the cutaway. Yeah, yeah.
And for whatever reason, it just looks weird. It
just looks a little weird, yeah. I mean, that being said, I don't mind the Les Paul that I have, although I will say it's really fucking heavy, and it makes me never want to pick it up, really, because it's so heavy. But I don't know, the Les Pauls are cool. I know you have your feelings about SGs, and I'm just going to let you rip into them for a little bit until I try to redeem.
I'm not going to rip into them. They're pieces of shit. I hate the SG. The SG is the worst guitar that has ever been made. You have the worst neck dive in history. You have the ugliest guitar. You have a guitar that feels 5,000 miles away from you just because of the way that the body was designed in relation to the neck and where the nut is. And it's just not comfortable. There's no redeeming qualities. At that point, like, why anyone would choose an SG when PRS exists is like, you're out of your mind to me, because that to me is the correct double cut. That's a comfortable guitar, a much better guitar all around designed. That's just me. That's all. I'm not going to go further than
that. You know what? It's funny that, we're going to be, this is like the exact opposite of last week's podcast, because I agree with every single point you just made. And I have an SG. It's an Epiphone SG that I've heavily modified, that it does not even resemble anything close to anything stock at all anymore. And I agree with all of those points on paper. But there's something about, maybe it's just because I'm a Fall of Troy fan, about watching that guy fucking rip a walnut SG that I always thought, like, yeah, that could be kind of cool. Like, it's not my favorite. I probably wouldn't buy one. The only reason I have one is because someone left it at my house for like a decade. And then I was like, hey, this is, by some weird law, this is mine now, right? And I literally I used this as an experiment. I ripped everything out of it. I put EMGs in it. I put a locking bridge on it. I shaved the neck down so that it wasn't the baseball bat that it was anymore. I repainted it. It's got all new parts. It literally, it's only an SG in shape. And I don't know. I kind of like it, but I wouldn't have paid for it. I don't know.
So all it took for you to like an SG was literally change everything, including shaving down the neck itself. That says everything that I need to say. So in an effort to not just, be all super negative Nancy here, that's where I'm going to end it. But I did find it interesting. I think it is good, though, if in all seriousness, for people that do like SGs, the fact that you can get this guitar shipped with the taxes, under $400, stainless steel frets, the Tesla pickups, like I said, they're better than the Roswells in my honest opinion. And I assume that these are going to come with the big pots, not the minis, because the SE552 that I had also came with the big pots. That's pretty cool. Nice little touch. I mean, colors are all right. I do like that Pelham blue. I think it's a beautiful finish. So it's nice to have options.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like you're saying, like it's just nice that they're clearly going through and they're checking off all of the guitars with all of the modern features that you can do whatever you want with. And that's, at the end of the day, I think their selling point, right? It's like, hey, I want an SG that has some stuff that I can do whatever I want to. They've got it. You want a Les Paul that you can do whatever you want to? They've got it. They got a Telly. They you name it, you can give it a shot. I mean, honestly, there's a couple of guitars in here that I would never pay full price for a guitar like that, but it would be cool to have one. Like, I don't really need a 7-string, but like, I wouldn't mind paying like a couple $100 to have one kicking around, and they like scratch that itch, So I think they're doing good stuff. I like to see it, even if I'm not going to buy one,
Yeah, I feel the same way about certain other brands too, and that was what made the Paranormal Cabronita that I got so appealing, because it was so cheap. It was under $400. It's got the Jazzmaster pickups in it. It's a semi-hollow body Telecaster. I mean, it's cool that you can get something unique like that nowadays from a major manufacturer. So, yeah, kudos to Fender in that sense, and also kudos to Harley Benton. But on a topic of guitars and body shapes and stuff like that, let's go to a positive. David, we always talk about what you don't like. Now, somebody wants to know, you got a comment asking what you do like. So, what guitars do you like, and what would be your desert island guitar?
Okay. So I do like Les Pauls, although I will say that, I always have the complaint that they're too heavy, right? So I think, for me, like the perfect Les Paul is the Goddess, and we've talked about this before, right? I think the Goddess Les Paul is so cool, right? Like, why don't they do more of those, or the Studio Lights, right? I don't know. It's everybody's main complaint about Les Paul. But if we're talking about, I hate the way Super Strats look. I love the way a classic Les Paul looks. It's just a great look, especially one with binding. I think there's just something about it. It feels like it's a guitar. Like, every idiot can go, that's a cool guitar. Like, there's something about it, right? I'll say, if I was looking at a desert island guitar, this is a terrible choice. For somebody who is a studio player mostly. But I think my favorite guitar of all time, look-wise, is a Les Paul Jr. I don't know why. There's something about the double cut Les Paul that is just perfect to me. And it's only the Gibson style, because there are other Les Paul double cuts. Like, I think Epiphone does one did one at one point. It just doesn't sit right. Something about the geometry is not right. But the classic Les Paul double cut Junior, all day. It's my favorite style.
One pickup or two?
If I'm going for what's actually usable, two. That being said, I own a Harley Benton Les Paul Jr. that is a single pickup, and it's like the perfect live guitar. It's idiot proof. It just sounds good, and it plays great, and it's simple, and it's in TV yellow, so it's even better. It's perfect.
See, I would disagree with one thing that you said, and that was, you said it wouldn't be a great studio tool. I think that they're fantastic, because you can get really cool cleans out of a P90 pickup, and it also muddies up. But I guess in the circumstances of the style of music that you like is a lot chunkier, and once you really start introducing gain to P90s, it doesn't translate very well. No, it doesn't.
Although I will say, the last record that we recorded with my band Junro, it's probably 75% of that record was actually done on P90s. And I think if you find that like sweet spot of kind of mid gain with a P90, and you really get that sort of aggressive kind of growly thing going, it can be really cool. They're just kind of finicky when you start to get to that particular point. I think really more what I meant by like not great as a studio guitar is that generally I think most of them that I see are the single pickup config, which it's fine if that's all you're doing, which is usually all we're doing. But if you need a little bit more than that, you obviously got to go with a double pickup one, which is harder to come by. But yeah, man, I don't know what it is about the Les Paul double cut juniors, but they look amazing. They always look amazing. And I really loved when they did those new ones, and I could just never find one for the right price. But even the blue, I thought they were pretty cool.
So you might be interested in one of the Rick Beato signature models?
No, I did not say that.
Well, it's a double cut with two P90s in it, and it's a DC, and it's Pelham blue.
I don't know what would get me to buy something that had his name on it. But maybe that's a different topic for a different time.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, I didn't actually know he had one. Let me look it up here.
Yeah, I follow him on Instagram, and I saw that about 2 months ago. They've been working on it for a while, and he's had it on recently. It's a very, very nice blue.
Yeah, I don't love the pickup cover. I'm sorry, the pickguard. And that is something that I have. There are some double cuts that I don't love the way that they do the pickguard. This one's a little bit weird.
Okay. So, all right. So we'll just leave the Rick Beato thing alone. Obviously, I think it was inferred by your reaction to that. You have an
I'm not a
opinion.
fan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
neither am I. However, moving on to the last thing I wanted to make a note of on your thing, you were talking about why doesn't Gibson make a guitar like a Goddess or a Studio Light anymore? And while I agree with that, you do know if you go to American Musical, and American Musical is the only place you can get this, they make a classic light that'll weigh 7 to 7.5 pounds. Binding, it has a little bit of a belly cut. 1,800, or I think it's $1,800 or $1,900.
I'm gonna have to take a look because it's a hole I have in my kind of guitar collection right now, and I would really like to fill it out.
And people like us who love the look, because my favorite guitar is the Les Paul Custom aesthetically. Like, I just love the way Les Paul Customs look. They're fantastic. But the weight of a Les Paul Custom prevents me from having it be like that main guitar. But, I mean, the fact that I can only come up with one off the top of my head, a production model from Gibson that's specifically, that light, it kind of forces you into either a different brand like ESP, or it forces you into a compromise of a guitar where you're either looking at a PRS, or if you're a person with no taste, then SG.
Yeah. It is weird that it's, I mean, I guess I'm trying to think of like, what is like I don't know, what's like the main complaint about a Tele or a Strat? Like, it's weird that Gibson has this like thing that everybody knows about Les Pauls. Like, everybody's like, yeah, man, they're so heavy, especially the customs. And it's like, why not just fix that? Or I don't know. Like, it seems like over the years it would have been something that would have just been easy to be like, all right, we're gonna kill this, like thing that everybody thinks about us. I don't know, or just offer more options.
Yes, and here's what drives me, because obviously I'm going to qualify this because I am not a guitar builder. I have never actually taken the wood and shaved it and shaped it and done anything like that. However, I do know for a fact the Vela, the PRS, that's a mahogany body. And those things weigh like 6 pounds. And they sound gigantic. So what are they doing to save 3 to 4 pounds per guitar here that Gibson isn't doing? And it's not like those things don't sound huge. You know what I mean?
Doesn't the obvious answer just be like, cut the fucking body width in half? I feel like every time I pick one up, I'm like, why does this thing need to be this thick? It does not. It will sit comfortably on your leg at half that thickness. I guarantee you, And I mean, if not, like...
You will love the classic light. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. Yeah, I'm going to say, like, I every time I played a Les Paul, I'm like, man, this would be great if it was just half the thickness. And, like, either that or keep it the same thickness and chamber it or something. I don't know. Like, it can't be that difficult. But, all right, so you obviously said Les Paul Custom is your favorite. Is that your Desert Island guitar shape?
God, no.
No?
God, no, because it would be too heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, you could maybe use it, like, to make a boat, right? It's enough wood.
If I was gonna go the boat route, I'd buy a 335. I'd have a little bit more, and it would already be kind of carved out, so I could kind of put little things inside. Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
I think my favorite guitar is a Jaguar, man. I really think so. I think I go around, I play a lot of Fenders, and I've obviously been a big Tele guy. I'm actually selling my Telecaster, by the way.
Ooh.
Yeah, and there's nothing against it. It's just one of those things. I have it for the sake of having a Telecaster. You know what I mean? I haven't really just like bonded with it, and I'd rather have the money in my pocket right now, and it is what it is. So I don't know. I always thought that a Tele was, the guitar for me, and in many senses it was for many years, but I love the trem. I like a trem. You don't like a trem. I love a trem because I play a lot of surf music and a lot of old kind of vintagey clean music that requires it. So the way the Jaguar has a short scale, great attack, great bite, great clarity, tremolo, abusable, and it looks gorgeous, that's the winner for me.
Yeah. I think it makes sense,
All right, Dave, so I just sent you that Les Paul Classic Light. It comes in a Honeyburst and a black. I know it says that the black ones are back ordered, but it never actually takes that long. Normally, every week or two, a few new ones pop up. What do you think about those? Because they are, like you said, you wanted ones that had a little bit of a thinner body. This one also has a belly cut. What are your thoughts?
I like the black one quite a bit. This feels very classic to me. Yeah, yeah. I don't know. This is pretty cool, man. I might have to grab one of these. $1,900 is a little. It's a little much for me right now, but okay. This is definitely
Break it
going
into 12 payments.
Yeah, that's how they get you. That's always how they get you. This is definitely on the wish list here for sure. Yeah, I like the classic, but I'm not a huge fan of the Honeyburst. Although this isn't bad. I feel like I'm like halfway between when I see these Les Pauls that have the bursts. Like sometimes they just look so bad, and I never know if you're going to order one and the burst is going to look terrible when it comes in, versus the stock photo. So I feel like the solid colors feel a little bit more safe, but I do like the black with the cream. It's cool. Definitely cool.
I would go with the black 100% over the Honeyburst if it was me. I thought about it. I thought about getting one of those, but then I was just like, do I need it? And the answer to that question is a resounding no, I do not need it. But I think it's really cool, and it is the only way to get into a Les Paul that isn't going to break your back. Because sometimes with studios, you can get lucky. I had in a 2019 studio, and that thing weighed, I think, 7.4 pounds. So it was very light, and it sounded gigantic too. And then I think 2 weeks later, I had in another one. That was a tribute. The second one was a tribute, and it weighed like 10.2 pounds. So I was just like, okay, this is like such a crapshoot, because that's a gigantic weight difference. At least with Stratch, it's between 7 and 8 pounds. Like with a Les Paul, you really don't know. And I feel like if you're not buying it from Sweetwater, or you're not buying it from a Reverb where it's going to tell you the weight, that's a tough gamble, man, because that's a big gap.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like one of those things that you're like, oh, it's not gonna bother me when I get it. And then I'll tell you from experience, I have the Harley Benton Les Paul sitting here, and I go, yeah, let me try that. And I pick it up and I go, like there's just something about picking it up and being like, this is too heavy. And then be like, I'll just do something else, and I'll pick another one. And it's like you don't think about it and go like, oh, it's just too heavy for me. Like you think you'll get over it, and then it just kind of puts this subconscious like meh in your head about it, And it's hard for me to get over, which just feels stupid. Like it feels so first world problem. Like, oh, my guitar's too thick. But I don't know. If something's in my way, I will use something else that's easier. So therefore, it doesn't get used. So, but all of this is always first world problems, right? This does kind of segue into I have a kind of off the cuff question here for you. So I had a Les Paul back in the day, probably like my third guitar I ever owned, and it was a studio Les Paul. It was in the like the cherry, the red with the black pickguard. It was fantastic, and it was super light. It was one of these mythical studios that's a completely reasonable weight. Fantastic sounding, fantastic playing. And I had, at the same time as well, an ESP, no, it was an LTD 1000, just one of the classic, right? They're, whatever, 1000 series. Both of them, great guitars, totally great guitars. And then I went to a Guitar Center, and I found a PRS McCarty, full hollow body, on sale. It was used, I think, for a completely and totally reasonable price. And I was like, oh my God, I got to have it because, I was like 17 and an idiot. And not that that's not a great guitar, but like, it was way more guitar than I could handle at the time. So I went and I sold both the studio and the ESP to get that guitar. And I played the guitar, and I had it for a few years, and I was always trying to convince myself that it was the right thing to do and that the guitar was great and it was totally worth it. And there is not a day that goes by that I don't go, man, I wish I had that fucking studio. At least, if not both the studio and the LTD. But it reminded me that I just think about this all the time, and I actually have another guitar regret story. But I was wondering if you have ever gotten rid of a guitar in your youth that you think about on the daily.
Not in my youth. In my youth, I will tell you, I sold a Les Paul in my youth. It was my third guitar as well. I didn't realize how rare it was. It was moss green. And I guess that they only made that for like a year or two. And I sold it to a guy who ended up being a much better guitar player than I am. And he's really into like heavy metal, and he's still really active right now. I don't think he's in a band, but every once in a while I want to message him. I want to be like, do you still have that guitar? Because if you do, and I only remember this story because I was the one that initially was teaching him how to play, and he didn't have all the money for it, and I took, I think, half up front. I charged him $400. That's the other thing. Shoot me in the face. So I get $200 for this guitar. I'll never forget this. And I'm so desperate for this money at this point because it's been months since I've gotten the rest of it. I went to his house as like a 16, 17-year-old, and I was like, dude, I'm like, can I please just like get the rest of this money for that guitar? Could I have the guitar back? And I got the money, but it was like, oh man, it was awkward. But
now you wish it went the other way.
Yeah. But I don't miss that one as much as I miss the Blue Studio Light. That guitar, I'm pissed off I sold. I sold that in 2013, and that was when I was really playing mainly surf music. And, you know, I had just gotten the Jazzmaster, and I thought to myself, I wasn't like this yet. You know, I'd gone through that phase at Full Sail where I had all those guitars. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that again. Like, I just want to have, like, a gigging guitar and, like, a nice guitar, whatever. So I sold that Les Paul, and I had no reason to. I didn't need to sell it. I had money at the time. I sold it so that somebody else would use it. And that guitar I regret selling, and I regret the not taking the Goddess. So, yeah.
I know. Those Goddesses, man, they pop up every once in a while, and I'm always like, I'm not paying this much money for them. They're always just going for nuts amounts. And it's also never, I haven't seen one in the purple, which is the one I really want.
I just did.
Did you? God, you're going to make me just, like, I'm going to have to mortgage my home.
No, it was gone in 36 minutes.
Of course
from when I saw it. I actually timed it because I'm weird. I always refresh the newest listings on Reverb during the middle of the day because sometimes you can get really lucky. How much did this guy want for it? It was like, I wouldn't say mint, but it was in excellent shape.
Remind me what they went for new.
Like nothing. I think when we bought ours, the blue one, it was $8.99, but it was like B stock, so it wasn't anywhere near what this one sold for.
Yeah, I've seen them. Usually, I see them in the $3,000 range.
Yeah, $39.99,
yeah.
and it's sold within 36 minutes.
Ridiculous, man. Yeah. It's so stupid.
I couldn't justify that. At that point, I could literally get like a used historic.
Yeah. You got to really love them, which I do, but still. Yeah.
Well, an interesting model to keep your eye out. If you ever run into money and you want to spend $4,000 because that's how much it's going to cost you, and it's a Gibson, they make my guitar, the ES Les Paul. That same year, they made ones without the F holes, and they're gorgeous. So it looks just like a normal Les Paul, 5.5 to 6 pounds, and the thing just resonates and sings like nothing you'll ever hear in your life. I almost bought one, but I'm glad I didn't, because I would be really up Schitt's Creek financially right now with that, and I'd have to sell something of significant value.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. We talked about this plenty of times before. When you start crossing that $3-4 like if I can get a used car for what I can spend on the guitar, it's really got to do something for me. Yeah,
and I think a good example of this, obviously, I have the pink Jag that's got a neck from a $2,200 American original on it, and obviously all the high-end hardware, master bridge, all that fun stuff. And then I have the custom shop Jag. The custom shop Jag new was $4,800. I didn't pay that. Obviously, I bought it used because I'm not a lunatic. And then this one, say it was an American original, it'd be $2,000. Could I find a $2,700 price difference from playing them back to back? No, absolutely not. But is one noticeably better than the other one?
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, it better be a $2,700 difference.
But that's the point. It's definitely better, but it's not like, I don't know. It's not. You could get two of those You could get a Jazzmaster and a Jaguar, or just the one.
It's definitely diminishing returns at a certain point, and I mean it is with anything. Yeah.
It's cool to have, and if you can get lucky like I do, and you find these things used at the right shops, because if you go to the wrong shops, you're still going to spend $4,000 on a used one of these things. That's what they go for on Reverb. But I mean, there's some shops like Dave's Guitar Shop. I'm telling you guys, when they get in custom shops, they go fast, but you will pay under $2,500 no matter what the model is, basically, for a custom shop, and sometimes as low as $19.99. You can get a bargain. And when you look at the prices of, that's what an American Ultra costs. That's what a Corey Wong Strat costs, $2,000.
Right.
So if you're quick and you're going to spend that money anyway, I'd rather have my money in something like that that's going to retain its value more. And then if I get in a pinch, maybe I make a few bucks.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this music. Now, on last week's podcast, we introduced a new segment where we recommended each other albums to listen to, and we were going to give our thoughts on it. So my album that I was given is Race Car Backwards by Ruben. And before the podcast started, I kind of gave Dave my takeaway on it. I was already familiar with the band, but after listening to this album again, it feels like what the rhythm guitarist, or really he's the lead guitarist, of Weezer, if he could play in a band, it would be this band. It sounds exactly like what he wants. It's just a little bit heavier, a little bit more aggressive, more in your face, but still catchy at the same time. It's definitely a great album. I like it a lot. I think Eating Only Apples was one that kind of stood out to me a little bit, and I don't know why it did, because it's typically that wouldn't be my kind of song in theory, but there's something about the arrangement. I like that a lot. And the last song on the album I thought was a perfect last song for any album, and I forget the name of it because I'm bad with names, but I do remember I'm Eating Only Apples. So overall, I think it's a good recommendation. I think if any of you guys are into kind of, a little bit more aggressive, bordering on, I don't know, it's not pop punk, but it's it's aggressive. I don't know genre wise where I would put it. What would you say?
Yeah, I think it falls into the alt rock with, this sort of, it's dipping toes into maybe some kind of metalcore, hardcore sort of stuff. I also feel like it's a little maybe pre some of that stuff as well. So it's kind of, it's 2004, so it's not, it's not defining any of those things, but it's sort of bridging that genre in a way that I think wasn't happening quite as much in that time. But yeah, man, I'm glad you liked it. It's one of my favorite albums. I love the idea of these super hardcore and heavy kind of things happening juxtaposed with crazy poppy choruses that are just earworms that get stuck in your head. I love that. I love when the band is doing two things that are super diametrically opposed to each other like that. And I also love that he there's, when you hear a singer who's just great and then they just pop into a falsetto or do a little trill or run or something and you're like, holy shit, they're amazing. He does that with screaming. And I just think that's incredible. It's he's singing so hard, he just boops into a scream and it just sounds amazing. And you're like, holy shit, where'd that come from? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's almost like when, what's his name? I'm not saying similar talent wise, but when Chris Jericho is playing Ozzy Osbourne covers, how he can he does the same thing. He'll get so aggressive, but then it naturally turns into a scream, and it just works, man. Yeah. It's really a cool thing. Not everybody can do that. So when I hear something like that, I'm like screaming's not my favorite thing in the whole world, but in instances like that, it's super cool because you really feel the emotion coming through. And that's what I think this band does a really good job of doing, is kind of bridging that gap between, super poppy and, at the same time.
Yeah.
I just growled.
That was nice. It was, I felt a little scared when you did it. I was like, ooh. Well, I had a very different type of album here. So you gave me Butch Walker and the Black Widows, which I actually think this one's just Butch Walker. I saw both on Spotify, but sometimes Spotify's wrong. So
Yeah, that's wrong. It's Butch Walker and the Black Widows, and it's a spade.
Yeah, and it was the spade, and it was. I should have known from the name, but I like kicked it up and it started twanging, and I was like, oh, I really wasn't expecting that. Yeah, and dude, it was cool. I'm not really like that into kind of the Southern stuff or any of the. I don't know if you. I'm so not into it that I'm not even sure like if I'm offending anybody with the genre, but it's definitely country-esque, But the production quality was great. Like right out the gate, I was like, "Oh, cool! This sounds sweet." Like everything's done really well. The mix was great. I loved his vocals. If he had turned off the twang, we could get away with it not being a country record. Like it's kind of the only thing that's sort of giving it away with some side production stuff that's going on. But it's cool because they like sort of started layering in some of like the retro stuff. There's like some real like Beatles-esque harmonies and things going on, and like I think it was either the second or third track that just cuts in with this like little 3-part that you're just like straight off of Sgt. Pepper's, right? And they have like a if Jet, which it basically is like a modern Beatles, if Jet was doing more Southern based stuff, and I love Jet, so it's definitely a vibe I dig. I'm gonna have to give it another listen or two to get past some of the like sort of initial kind of like okay, sort of thoughts with it, but yeah, definitely very cool stuff, and not something I would have listened to otherwise. So that was part of the ask here, right?
Yeah, and here's what's interesting about that, because I picked that one on purpose. Butch Walker, before this, you would never hear a song like that from him, a record like that from him. Butch Walker, dude, he was in a band called The Marvelous Three, and before that, he was in like 80s shred metal band as the lead singer and vocalist. Like he's a ripper on guitar, and you can tell from his vocals, like he's a monster. He's a monster. But yeah, all of his stuff before that is very like kind of like arena rock and just like gigantic and all of this like just very modern style. And then he kind of branched off because his record, he had to deal with the label, and basically they got so screwed that they had to choose between writing music for the label that like they would accept and then be able to commercially market, or to just say fuck this and dissolve the band and go their own ways. So in an artistic way of saying screw you to the label, they just are not allowed to play together anymore. So he ended up just starting doing his own stuff, and that's where he produced his own albums from there. And there's some of this stuff, man, like it's much heavier. It's a lot more rock based. This is the first one that's very, very twangy. I don't think I ever have heard a Telecaster on any of his records before this one. So I just thought it would be an interesting way to introduce you to him, because I think you'll appreciate even more now when I show you some of his older stuff. You'll be like, this is the same guy. You'll be like, what the hell is going on here? But yeah, no, the guy's a genius. He's one of the most sought after producers in Los Angeles. Now he works with everybody. He's done Weezer, Taylor Swift, Midtown, Katy Perry. He's done everybody from, garage rock to, top 40.
Sure.
But I mean, whatever pays the bills, right?
Well, now I'm embarrassed I didn't know more about him beforehand. Definitely sounds like somebody I should be aware of.
You should. Yeah, he's a great producer, cool. And a great singer.
Nice.
Great singer.
Nice. Cool. All right, you got to. If anybody agrees or disagrees with us in our album reviews, please leave some comments. I'd love to hear everybody's take on Butch Walker and on Ruben, and why. Realistically, I think those two artists probably have never been uttered before together, but we're doing it now. So, if you got any opinions, we'd love to hear them. Do you have a recommendation for next week?
Yes, and this is one that you might have already heard. It's by a band called Funeral for a Friend. And the name of this record that I'm going to choose, which one am I going to choose? We're going to choose Hours.
Okay. I don't think I have listened to this one. I've heard of the band, but I don't think I've listened to this album. All right. So because I got a shout out on one of our podcasts a couple weeks ago, I'm going to have to recommend a Microwave album. I don't know if you've listened to Microwave at all.
I did, because of that comment.
Oh, yeah? All right.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're really cool. They went from like the first song really threw me off. I forget what song it was. So I just typed into YouTube Microwave band, because I thought the guy was trolling at first, because I was just like, my favorite band is Microwave, and it was like he had never commented on the channel before. I'm like, okay, whatever. I clicked the first song, and it starts off as this really beautiful, clean guitar and like subdued vocal, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's mellow. And then the chorus comes in, and it's just like the guitars just swallow you up whole. And it's just, is great. I liked it a lot. So I'll be happy. What album?
Much Love.
Much Love. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a shirt, actually, another Microwave shirt, because we've seen them seen shows from them so many times. That's literally just a microwave, and it says 420 in the timer. And people always come up and they're like, man, great shirt. And I'm like, yeah, it's a band. And they're like, oh. And I'm like, do you think I just love microwaves? Like that I would like wear a shirt that just has a microwave on it? Yeah, and like it just happens to have I don't know, it's just, but yeah, I thought that was funny that somebody called out the microwave shirt, and I'm like, I'm sure there are a bunch of people who have no idea what this dude's talking about.
Now, I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, not with you, but with YouTube. But without saying exactly what it is, were you ever into that stuff? You don't strike me as somebody that was into that stuff.
I had some periods. Then it got to the point where, every time I did, I was freaking out. So I kind of stopped, And, I have no issues with it. It's just not for me anymore.
I get it. I just top of my head, because I was just picturing you wearing a Microwave 420 shirt. And I'm like, does that work? Like, forget the band. Like, just in context, does that work? And I didn't think it did. So you actually just answered my question. I was right. I didn't think it would work.
There was a brief period in my life where it would have, although I still don't think I would have worn any, shirts calling it out or anything. Just not my vibe. But no, not anymore.
Oh, God. All right, Dave, you got anything else you want to hit on before we wrap it up? We went on a freaking tangent that I did not see.
Yeah, I didn't either. Other than I bought a Kraken preamp. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. I'm waiting on it to come in, but I'm super excited to try it out. We've got some reamping coming up on the album, and I'm waiting until that puppy comes in, because I think it's going to be killer tones. I know Gain 1 is just awesome, so I'm super stoked to try that out. I'll come back with some updates.
Okay, so now I have to ask you a follow-up from last week. How did the warm audio do?
Oh, amazing. Fantastic. The guy came in, he crushed this cover of Hell's Bells that was incredibly djenty and metally. And it was great. It worked. And I completely forgot he was a screamer as well. And he did screams, he did clean vocals, and they sounded awesome. It's got great body without like really getting into that boomy low end. I don't know if you've heard like the TLM, the 103s and the 102s. They kind of like, they just a little too much, where sometimes you're like, I didn't need that, and I prefer not having to EQ the craps out of my mics, So it was fantastic. Such a great buy.
No real harshness on the high end?
No, not at all. Yeah, definitely nice and crispy. But, we didn't get into like the C414 range where you're sort of like, ooh, back it off, just well-rounded. And still up for $3.99. So if anybody is looking for a great condenser, go check American Musical, grab the B stock. Mine is in perfect condition, sounds fantastic. And I get a year warranty for 30% off. Yeah.
Yeah, I told you when I saw that deal, it was extremely good. Another thing that's worth noting for sale, Lawton Audio. I think they are 20% off through the end of the month for the American Musical, and we don't get paid for any of this stuff. I just like sharing good deals when they're available for you. I really like this tube mic. It sounds really, 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 really good on the guitar cabinet. That's a video that I'm working on. Very surprised by that. I have to try it as a mono overhead just for scientific purposes. I just want to hear how it sounds, and we'll do a comparison with a mix of that versus the cheapo AT2020. I think that'll be very interesting, because on an acoustic guitar, you can hear a difference, but I feel like on a drum kit, it's going to be so night and day, because there's so much more frequency-wise to kind of take in with the one capsule, that you'll really notice and appreciate the quality of the tube microphone versus the budget condenser microphone.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to sound better.
Well, it's not a matter of wonder. It's a matter of when you actually hearing it, like to an inexperienced ear, just like it can be very eye-opening as to what makes it sound better. Because obviously it's going to sound better, but why? What makes it sound better? And that's kind of what, when I do those little reviews like that, that's my goal. My goal isn't necessarily to be like, this product's better than that product. It's more to just like expose like, what might this one actually be better at than this one? Or, what might you not expect the differences to be? Or is a $500 difference even worth it depending on what you're using it for? Because it's all variable based, man.
Absolutely.
All right, that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you very much for listening to Audiomo Podcast number 5. We will be back next week. I think we're going to be doing it on Sunday because next Tuesday, I didn't tell you this yet, Dave, I have a different podcast I have to shoot. I'm interviewing the owner and head engineer of my favorite recording studio in the entire world, Capricorn Studios, Mr. Chris Town. I'm very excited about that. So if any of you have any questions for the head engineer, Chris Town, let me know. The guy is a wizard with mic and guitar cabinets. Other than that, we will see you tomorrow for the live stream. Take it easy, everybody.